Well, welcome back. I tell you what, this conversation has already started offline, but let's bring you up to speed with it as well. Now, yesterday, the Constitutional Court judgment on the constitutionality and the invalidity of the appointment of Advocate Shaun Abrahams as the National Director of Public Prosecutions by former President Jacob Zuma and the termination of the appointment of Mr Mxolisi Nxasana as NDPP was obviously in the spotlight. Now, questions about the credibility and the instability plaguing the National Prosecutions Authority over the years have also been asked. The court also said that the rule of law dictates that the office of the NDPP needs to be cleansed of all the ills that have plagued it for the past few years. So to talk more about this and how it all began, how the spiral got us to where we are right now, we are joined in studio by Judge Johann Kriegler, who's chairperson of Freedom Under Law, and Prince Mashele, a political analyst. Gentlemen, good morning and thanks so much for coming through.
Morning and thanks for your invitation.
I think, Judge Kriegler, let me start with you, only fitting, given that in part, you know, we are here today talking about the issues we are discussing because of action that was brought by Freedom Under Law and Corruption Watch. So with that and against that background, what did you make of yesterday's judgment?
I think it was a triumph for the rule of law. I think it was a triumph for all South Africans. I personally was proud to be a lawyer. I was proud to be a South African. And I was actually also a little bit proud of having been involved in the court case itself.
What exactly were you proud of?
I was proud of the fact that we have a process, a constitutional and a judicial process that works so well that a social or a political ill can actually be debated clinically, sensibly, and be brought to a satisfactory conclusion. I think that's what the law and what the Constitution is about, is to be able to put plaster on the injuries, to bind up the fractures, and I think that's what was done to the body politic yesterday.
Prince, what was your view on that?
Well, I think the lesson that I took away from the judgment yesterday is that institutions eventually triumph, that political power has short legs. Because when politicians are in power, they tend to believe that they are so all-powerful that they can do what they like. So yesterday, the biggest lesson to politicians of the past and those of the future is that in the end, institutions are more powerful than individual politicians.
But, you know, this was not an event. We didn't just happen here one day. This was a process of the constitutionality in terms of making these appointments, in terms of, you know, just following and applying the rule of law. It was eroded over time to a point now where the public has very little faith in the NPA as we speak right now. So something needs to be done. The judgment also spoke to that, you know, about restoring the credibility of this particular institution. Judge Kriegler, how do we start?
I think we have started. I think it's been a major step, yesterday's judgment, the order for the replacement. I think that the President is and has for some time been acutely aware of the problems within the senior echelons of the NPA. And let's quickly make this point. The NPA consists of thousands of people, the overwhelming majority of them dedicated, competent, hard-working civil servants, people who are there to serve the public. The problem lies at the top, at the very top management level, and I believe the President is aware of that. He has been aware of that for some time, and swift but well-considered intervention at this stage in the selection of the new acting head and then in the selection of the permanent head are obviously the first steps.
Look, I think that We are where we are precisely because of the point that the judge is making. We must not go down that route. What has been the road that led us to where we are? Because if we don't understand that, we will repeat the same mistakes.
So how did we get here?
We got here because of two things. One, the politicization of the process of appointing the head of the NPA. So if you take, for example, the first three NDPPs after 1994, take Bulelani Ngcuka, you take Vusi Pikoli, you take Mxolisi. These three were lawyer politicians of the ANC, right? At the time, nobody raised any concern because of the fact that we're in the transition. But we actually saw the problems of having people connected to a political party heading that institution. Because when they have to deal with their own comrades, then they are conflicted. We must never go down that route again. So the first thing is, when the president appoints whoever to take up that job, it must never be a lawyer politician of the ANC. It must be a lawyer with integrity who is respected in the legal profession. That's number one. Number two, we got there because of the lack of integrity on the part of the political leadership at the helm of our country. So if you take the previous two NDPPs, Nxasana and Shaun Abrahams, these two chaps were not appointed because they were the brilliant lawyers in our country. They were appointed because Jacob Zuma was president at the time, thought that he could use them to squash the cases that he faced. So you need both a process that will restore public integrity, and I think it must not be placed entirely in the hands of the president. I think we need to adopt new policy that will say there is a public component leading to the appointment of the NDPP. But also we need to have a man of or women of integrity in the presidency. If we don't have these two, we will go back exactly where we were.
I'll tell you what, we'll flash that out a little further after this break.